In Arcane Odyssey, players start off with an originally set age of 18. This is set to prevent the player from having to commit to the excruciating chore of becoming a pirate lord at the age of 16, because we all know that 16-year-olds have to finish high school before excursioning on a magical pirate quest of magic and spells. Sorcery. And also, to avoid canonical teenage players from committing sexual atrocities to one another, because players who play RPGs tend to test this degeneracy. You know who you are. This age counter will change depending on how many hours a player has played. It is merely just there to appeal to roleplay purposes and personal maturity. Jimmy Bravo here, having 200 hours, being 19, can easily mog Jimmy Nimbus here, who is a measly 18-year-old. Still legal though. But in my personal experience, I have seen fishing farmers who leave the game open for countless hours, amassing thousands of hours, being well over the age of 100 years of age. And that sparks a question in me noggin. How long can you canonically live in Arcane Odyssey? See, let's become mathematical for a moment. According to an archaeologically unearthed blog discussion from an Arcane Odyssey wiki back in 2023, canonically, I'm going to say that word a lot, by the way, a typical in-game day takes 20 minutes. 10 minutes goes into daytime, and 10 minutes goes into nighttime, which honestly feels like 30 minutes of nighttime every time I wait for the day to happen in order to get a decent thumbnail photo just to get blinded by the sun. And now I can confirm this player did not commit the atrocity of waiting in the same spot with a timer to confirm this. You can just use your brain like a normal question asker and look down into the in-game badges. The true captain badge that was added in the Dark Sea update claims that 2 days is equal to 40 minutes. So if we use that evidence and use our math and we use our brains, we can confirm that an hour would be approximately 3 in-game days. And an in-game week would be 140 minutes in real time. And we all know that 140 minutes in real life is the amount of time it takes for you to go to the gym and get a decent pump. There are 52 weeks in a year. So if you multiply 140 by 52, an in-game year would be 7,280 minutes in real life. Transformed into hours would be approximately 121.3 hours, which is 120 rounded. Now this is actually confirmed as true, since all players you're going to see who have that much playtime end up being 20 years of age in game and can legally buy alcohol in Japan. A miscalculation in the script, you have to be 240 hours. Now 120 hours is a big number. That's how many hours I have to drive supervised in order to achieve my official driver's license. Yeah, you can see why I'm not so keen on playing video games anymore. Now, normally, a player who acquires 120 hours of playtime gets bored and stops playing the game, because in that time you would have acquired a decent build and nothing else worth fighting for. So, what do? You make another file, have another kid. What's 18 more years? But this time, you want to try and play as a knight. But some people don't give up. They push through with original file and enter the Twilight Zone. We call these people penis players. PvP players for short. They spend a lot of their time either in Elysium or in the War Seas farming renown. These penis players can play for a long time without getting bored, with most renowned addicts amassing a maximum 1,000 hours of player time. Canonical age of these players would be around 26 years old in-game. But this is the cap you can probably reach in in-game hours. The maximum of hours you'll see players invest into the game, as the game was only released like, 2 years ago? But sometimes you'll find players of earlier generations who've had their files carried over from earlier games, like Arcane Adventures or World of Magic. But the number usually peaks at 1,000.
But the most maximumist total playtime greatly surpasses this amount, however, for it is evil.
Ever since sunken items were introduced long ago, some select elite players have pushed through their limits in order to acquire these treasures, fishing off thousands of fish, drying up the waters, creating mass extinctions of marine specimens. We call these creatures The Chinese. Or, in Arcane Odyssey language, they're exploiters, but in real life, they're Chinese. These are players who download and enable select robot clanker programs that automatically does the fishing process for them overnight. These players go and hide on a sheltered island of Dark Sea and are the leading dealers of sunken merchandise. And some of them are Chinese. These players amass ungodly amounts of playtime that rivals the most experienced off-platform gamers in who can waste the most time on a video game as possible by leaving the game open every time they have a little depressed gamer snooze. They can crunch in 24 in-game hours every day, one player being rumored to achieve 10,000 to 12,000 hours on Arcane Odyssey until their untimely banishment by Arcane Odyssey moderation because, quote unquote, this type of she be low-key illegal, furfur no cap. If the math is done correctly, canonically, this player was banned somewhere between the ages 101 and 118. In real life, geezers at this age are usually called super centenarians. But the player age is just a roleplay thing. When your player ages, there aren't really any buffs or debuffs added to their stats. All it is just a number next to your name, marking your experience and value to society. But it's actually kind of canonical. Even if your Arcane Odyssey file is a geezer, it won't really change their appearance, let alone give it a mild hatred for the younger generations. And to explain this phenomena, let's become lure-friendly for a moment. See, if you aren't a clanker like me who skips out on the main story dialogue and misses out on all the lore the game has to offer, the aging mystery is explained by your player's race, having inherited the magic in your blood by your non-existent parents. Or maybe you were made in a magical baby factory. Or you're created from the fragments of... Look, I don't know, it's Roblox. It's... The existence of intercourse is hard to explain here. Look, you are special because you are magical. Canonically, mages are beings blessed by the gods and have the ability to live for 500 years, and potentially even further through the help of awakenings and curses. The player's lifespan doesn't change depending on whether they are berserker or a mage, as despite changing combat style, the player is still magical by blood. So, if the Lord decides that 500 years is the maximum amount of years that an Arcane Odyssey player can live, then that means that in order to live a long, fruitful wizard life in Arcane Odyssey, you have to play the game for approximately, ultimately, fruitfully, lore-friendly 90,000 hours. That's 10 years in real life.
And that is if you play 24/7.
But wait! There's more. Curses. Building blocks that give players immense powers. They are like the devil fruits from One Penis, but Roblox. Except players are not allowed to use these curses because they are simply a plot device. But canonically, whoever absorbs these curses become immortal in nature.
Very icky, no good.
This means they can't die by natural causes, meaning they can't age. So if you think of Arcane Odyssey as a big old nerd book and not a video game for civilized people, if your player were to stumble across and absorb a curse, they would live for this number of years. But come on, who wants to live that long? How are you going to entertain yourself for infinity amount of times? After all, when the sun explodes, there'll be no casinos left.